Mr. Speaker, with your leave, I beg leave to move the second reading of the bill entitled the Appropriation 2019 Bill 2018. The bill is to provide for the services of St. Christopher and Nevis for the financial year commencing 1st January 2019 and ending on the 31st of December 2019. Of course, the bill shall be deemed to come in effect on the first day of January 2019. And it provides for the appropriation, the drafts of which we have laid on the table. At Clause 2, the bill says that there shall be, and there is hereby granted to Her Majesty the Queen for and during the period of 1 year, commencing on the first day of January 2019 and ending on the 31st day of December 2019, the sum of $677,994,073 over and above the sums granted and provided for under the acts and other laws in force in St. Christopher and Nevis, to be applied and expended in the manner and for the services set forth in the schedule hitherto. The said sum, Mr. Speaker, shall be, and the same is hereby declared to be charged and payable from and out of the consolidated fund. Clause 4 provides the Accountant General with the authority to pay based on the approval of these estimates, which we went through a while ago in accordance with the order paper. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased on this occasion to be presenting my fourth budget, if you will, to the country and to my beloved people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and to do so at a moment of calm and peace, serenity in this, the land of my birth, and to do it at a moment when we are making history. Only yesterday, Mr. Speaker, the country looked on in awe and admiration, realizing that history was being made when the largest cruise vessel, the Symphony of the Seas, docked in Bastia. Oh, what a day it was. And I want to commend the Minister of Tourism for the leadership role and for the bonanza, as it was, that we are reaping in tourism development. But it was not just one occasion for history in the making. There was a second occasion because for the first time in tourism history, we had two of the world's best-known vessels making their inaugural visit to our federation. Symphony of the Seas and the Norwegian Trade making their inaugural visit to St. Kitts and Nevis. Something said by the Honourable Member for St. Christopher I stuck with me as he participated in the official ceremony. He is wise for his age because he recounted and drew attention to the imagery of the smallest country in the world receiving and offering hospitality to the largest cruise ship in the world. Something must resonate in the hearts and minds of every patriotic citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis. The smallest country playing host to the largest cruise vessel anywhere in the world. That touched me as one who loved my country, because it signaled that we are on a forward march, never to look back from whence we have come. And so I want to thank the member for number one for the inspiration of those pleasant sounding words in your commendation. I reflect yesterday too, how the quality of life of our people, particularly the traveling public, who go northeast from Barstow to country, from country to Barstow. Traveling public's life has been enhanced because we opened what many had promised and never delivered, the East Line bus terminal. And hundreds of persons came out to see the spectacular new facility and the role it will play in the social transformation of their own lives, with enhanced services that are now available to them as they move to and fro from that facility. And I marvel again, something wonderfully good is happening in our country. I want to commend the minister, as I've commended the Minister of Tourism, for that excellent facility and the teamwork. Not just the ministers, the teamwork. Member for St. Christopher works with an incredible team, he will admit, in the ministry and in the Tourism Authority. And I heard member, the Minister for Public Infrastructure, by and large commend the team effort that led to such a spanking, awesome facility. And I encourage all who are here, who have not yet gone, go wander around in the new spanking facility at Wellington Road, and you understand and marvel again at what this government is doing. And I reflect upon those as I reflect upon the admonition of Father a while ago, that this budget debate must be about how we are enhancing the quality of life for the ordinary people of St. Christopher and Nevis. For who are the beneficiaries, by and large, of the expansion of our tourism plan? Who did I see there yesterday were ordinary people like Bradshaw from Sadler's, a taximan, and several other taximen who were there. It were ordinary vendors who were there. And at the facility yesterday, where hundreds came out, who were there? But the ordinary people who move from one point to the other, only with the facilitation of our public transport. I marvel and reflect now how right the team unity government is for St. Kitts and Nevis. This budget, then, is about how we sustain the growth and prosperity that is happening in our country. And everyone is marveling about it, that St. Kitts is moving on and moving ahead. Those who walk through Independence Square marvel at the light up, and they hail these developments that ensure their peace and enjoyment of these historical landmarks. The year 2018, Mr. Speaker, has been a momentous year during which our young nation marked 35 years of independence, and we can confidently declare many blessings that God has bestowed on our country and people. Reflecting on our independence brings with it a feeling of pride, especially when we pause to consider the achievements we have made over the past 35 years and contemplate the potential for attaining higher heights in terms of the economic and social development of this beautiful Twin Island Federation. Our government is particularly proud to reflect on the record achievements since taking the reins of government in February 2015. The impact of the various policy initiatives, programs, and projects of our administration has been far-reaching and is being felt throughout the communities. We have delivered solutions in many areas to improve the lives of the people. We have delivered solutions in education, in healthcare, in housing, in water, in sanitation, roads, and other public infrastructure. No investment in our people is too great. Accordingly, we will continue to invest in these areas in order to achieve our goal of sustainable and inclusive people development and our vision of shared prosperity for all citizens and residents of our beloved country. The 2019 budget is therefore being presented under the theme, Sustaining Growth and Prosperity. This theme is rooted in my government's determination to deliver on the mandates given by the people. The achievements of my administration are well known. Our citizens and residents, and many across the region who continue to marvel at the progress we have made to date. For example, we get calls every day. How do you manage to pay double salary back to back, 3 times in a row? Could you send the prescription to Antigua, to St. Lucia? And we said to them, it is particularly unique to St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Speaker, I would not attempt on this occasion to recall all our achievements, but I want to remind the public of just 2 of our major achievements, namely the gratuitous payment of $16 million to the former sugar workers. These are among the poorest of the poor, to which the father made reference that governmental policy must take good care of. We remove VAT from all food, medicines, and funeral expenses. We determined to take action where possible to move our society closer to one that reflects greater equity across the population. And as we continue to implement our prosperity agenda, we will continue to do all that is possible to ensure a fair share for all of our citizens. Mr. Speaker, we have demonstrated a clear commitment to fulfilling every promise that we have made to the citizens of the country. We have introduced a pragmatic approach to government business, and we have been forthright and honest about what we can do and what we will do. Consequently, during my last budget presentation, my administration gave the commitment to the government auxiliary employees, or perhaps better known as the non-establishment workers, who since 2008 lost the benefit of the payment of their holiday pay at the end of each year. We promise these workers who were disadvantaged that we will restore the payment if the government had not been successful in setting up the new contributory pension scheme by December 2018. In the spirit of fairness and in keeping with our promise, all government auxiliary employees would be paid holiday pay this December for the first time in 10 years. A promise made, a promise being kept to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Over the past 12 months, we have made good progress with our efforts to establish this contributory pension scheme. Early in 2019, Mrs. Rochester had advised that we should receive the final report from the actuary who has been contracted to assess and make recommendations that would be critical to the final design of this new contributory pension scheme. The long-awaited pension scheme would therefore be fully implemented in 2019, relieving the 1,000+ government employees of the anxiety about what will happen to them after their retirement. We will take care of these workers. Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to report that in June of this year, we successfully launched the Government Employees Mortgage Scheme, where the government has invested $30 million for the purpose of funding mortgages for employees of the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. The mortgage scheme is being implemented through the Development Bank, and the government employees accessing this facility can benefit from a mortgage loan valued up to $300,000 in the case of a single applicant at 5% on the reducing balance for up to 30 years. Where there is a joint application, the borrowers can access a mortgage loan up to $450,000. The mortgage scheme has supported qualifying government employees with the purchase and/or construction of a first home or refurbishment of their primary residence. We continue to be a government of solutions, improving the quality of life for all our citizens. In addition to this program, our housing solution includes 450 households assisted through the HELP program through the NHC. Under the Hurricane Repair Housing Assistance, over 2,000 households have been assisted. Under the first program, 430 households. And on the various initiatives through the National Bank, another 310 have been assisted. The NHC has delivered 223 homes to date, and over 3,000 families have benefited in some way by the most expansive housing program in the history of our country. Mr. Speaker, we heard the concerns of the farmers and fishers after the passage of 2 Category 5 hurricanes in 2017. We note that the damage sustained threatened the recent improvements in output of the agriculture sector, which was doing fine. Up to September of 2017, the agricultural sector was growing by double digits, nearly 20%, a remarkable turnaround in agriculture before the unfortunate visit of 2 devastating hurricanes. We pledged to bring relief to the farmers and fishers in ways that would help to increase the contribution of agriculture to economic growth. Here again, we made a commitment, and we have fulfilled this commitment. In this regard, we established the Agriculture Support Fund in collaboration with the Development Bank to provide both grant and loan financing. I am elated to update this Honourable House that our deserving farmers and fishers, some 230 of them, on the 6th of December, received grant support totaling $1 million. Government is at work for the people. These farmers, of course, came not only from St. Kitts, but several of them came from my father's land of Nevis. We are not only interested in ensuring that the farmers and fishers return to prior levels of operation, but we are also interested in enabling them to achieve more, to produce more, and contribute more to the economy and the food security of our people. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that our actions are all geared towards building momentum in delivering on the mandates given by our people. And by so doing, we are building momentum in moving our country to a higher level of growth and prosperity. Members of the Honourable House, and indeed members of the public, would remember that in my last budget I spoke about one of our primary missions, that is to arrest poverty in all our communities. This is the underlying impetus for our government's emphasis on strengthening the social safety net and protection system. We are determined to reduce the number of families falling through the cracks and succumbing to poverty. We have determined that there must be greater equity in the distribution of our nation's wealth. And in this regard, on the 21st of December, we will be implementing the support to families earning less than $3,000 per month. This is an amazing achievement. And I recall when we announced it, some said it couldn't be done. It was a pie in the sky. Where will they get the money from? And even now, as we will start to pay on the 21st of December, some may still ask where they're getting the money from. The answer, we're getting the money from our resources, from our own investment and savings in the bank. We're not pulling the devil tail. That is where the money is coming from. And we budgeted for it last year. We put it in the budget. So when some persons ask the question, where are they getting the money from? The answer is in prudent fiscal management of our country. That has allowed us to report year after year, 4 years in a row, surplus. We saved the surplus, build the buffer. So when the time was right and we could sustain it, we could implement one of the most significant social protection programs in the history of the country. So we are grateful for the inspiration that God has given us to manage the affairs of the country and to develop policies and programs that are fit for purpose and effectively empower our people. The policies implemented over the last 3 years are undoubtedly yielding positive results. We are building an economy with very strong fundamentals. Low debt, we will come to that. Low inflation, look at the ECCB report. Job creation, look at the Social Security report, and fiscal surpluses. The efforts of the government, of course, must be supported by the private sector to achieve the desired level of growth in the economy, to secure full employment and sustain development. And I'm happy to have in our midst a sizable delegation from the business sector, including its president, Mr. Farron Lawrence. So we bid them all welcome to the budget debate. The contribution of the private sector, therefore, would continue to be an essential building block for accelerating economic growth and expanding prosperity beyond the levels already attained. Our private sector partners must take advantage of the myriad opportunities for innovation and engagement. We are optimistic that the private sector would seize these opportunities and contribute even more to the growth and prosperity agenda. For our part, we will continue to be creative and implement initiatives which would bring sustained economic growth as well as hope and prosperity to our people. To date, our various policies, initiatives, programs, and projects have made a positive difference in the lives of the people. I want now, Mr. Speaker, to look quickly at some regional and international economic events so that we could placate, if you will, St. Kitts and Nevis in the context of the rest of the world. Mr. Speaker, the expansion of economic activity in the global economy continues to be steady. And the IMF Fund, in its latest edition of the World Economic Outlook, reported that global growth is projected to expand to 3.7% for 2018 and 2019. The risks to growth in the global economy skew, however, to the downside. In an environment of policy uncertainty in regard to escalating trade tensions and the potential shift away from a multilateral rule-based trading system, increased risks also exist due to the possibility that the accommodating global financial conditions could tighten sharply as a result of more aggressive monetary policies in advanced economies. All of these factors have the potential to affect growth as a consequence of their impact on tourism, trade, and other inflows. The advanced economies are projected to record an increase in economic activity, expanding by 2.4% in 2018. Economic activity in the USA, the economic powerhouse of the world, is being put at 2.9% in 2018, just 0.7 percentage points when compared to 2017, while the Euro area and the UK is projected to grow more moderately at 2% and 1.4% respectively. On the regional scene, the economies of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, ECCU, recorded a slowdown in gross value added to 1.3% in 2017 when compared to 2.7% in 2016. This they attributed to a decline in agriculture, in livestock and forestry sector when compared to a contraction of 0.7% in 2016 as crop production continued to be constrained among member states as a result of the hurricanes and other adverse effects. The effect of this contraction was stymied or offset by expansions in value added in construction sector, the mining and quarry sector, transport, storage, and communication sectors. Growth within member states of the OECS in 2017 ranged from a decline of 10.5, I think this was in Dominica, to an expansion of 4.7%. And the data for January to June 2018 has indicated that within our currency union, we will have growth of about 3.3%, at least for the first half. Mr. Speaker, turning now to the economy of St. Kitts and Nevis, we continue to demonstrate resilience amidst the prevailing downside risks in the international and regional economic environment. Gross domestic product in the Federation increased by 2.1%, which is on par with the growth rate of 2.3% recorded by advanced economies. The outturn also surpassed the economic output of the currency union, which was put at 1.3% for the same period. The growth in the local economy was underpinned by expansions of 11.4% in agriculture, 6% in transport, storage, and communication sector, and 4.7% in the construction sector. The growth trend in the economy continued in 2018, resulting in a positive outturn during the first half of the year. I'm advised that the growth we are currently witnessing is attributed largely to the growth in tourism sector, which grew by some 8.5% in the first half of 2018. The manufacturing sector also rebounded during the first 6 months of 2018, recording an expansion in economic activity of 3.7% after declining in 2017. This upturn in the sector is influenced by an increase in the production of electronic components of 5%. The agriculture sector also contributed positively to the overall performance of the economy by recording a 5% increase in output, in line with growth in the livestock and fisheries subsector, which recorded increases of 11.3% and 9.7% respectively. The real estate, renting, and business activities sector expanded by 2.7%, while wholesale and retail and financial intermediation sectors expanded by 1% respectively. The average rate of inflation, as measured by the Consumer Price Index, deflated by 0.6% in the first half of 2018, in line with the deceleration in prices in the non-food services indices of 1.6 and 1.2% respectively. Prices in the food and beverages index, however, increased by 2.6 over the period as a result of steady increases in international food prices. My administration will continue to monitor this situation and to improve food security in our federation. Turning to the external account, Mr. Speaker, a statistic that measures the transaction and flows of capital between Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis and the rest of the world. In 2017, the current account deficit improved by 28.3% to $233.3 million, or 8.9% of GDP at market prices. This improvement is mainly attributed to the decline in net import of goods by 8.2% to $768.8 million. The services account surplus increased by 4.5% to $755.9 million, Mr. Speaker, as a result of a 9.2% increase in tourism receipts. The receipt of capital transfers and the capital account is estimated to have increased by $91.7 million. These inflows have led to an improvement in the balance of payments position for the Federation in 2017. Mr. Speaker, as we continue to build on past achievements, we have made strides in the proper management of public finances. You would be aware that as Minister of Finance, I have dutifully kept the public informed of the results of the government fiscal operations, which have consistently reflected surpluses for the three main fiscal indicators. For the year 2017, we recorded a surplus of 88.2 million and recurrent account, a surplus of 62.8 million, and the overall balance and the primary balance reflected a surplus of 86.7 million. For 2017, recurrent revenue total 622.8 million. Of the total amount received for recurrent revenue, 401.5 million was derived from taxes, with 221.3 million generated from non-tax revenue. The largest tax category was taxes on international trade and transactions, which represented 43% of tax revenues, while inflows from the CBI program was the most significant component of tax revenue, contributing 67.5% in 2017. Turning to expenditure. Recurrent expenditure for 2017 amounted to $534.5 million. Mr. Speaker, the overage, this was $33.8 million over the approved estimates. The overage on account was as a result of transfers to the Nevis Island administration and some other state-owned enterprises. In addition, personal emoluments, wages, and allowances surpassed budget by 8.8 million, Mr. Speaker. These, of course, were offset by savings and expenditure for goods and services and interest payments, which went below budget by 11.8% and 6.7%, respectively. Mr. Speaker, regarding our public sector investment program, 62 million was spent in 2017 on various capital projects, with approximately 88.4% coming from government's revenues. The remaining 11.6% then of the total capital expenditure came from development aid. And we want to thank the Republic of China, Taiwan, and its ambassador who is here for their support. We record contributions from ICTEL and from the Whitegate Development Corporation, which partnered with national security in the establishment of our forensic lab. Progress was made on a number of projects, including the upgrade of our sporting facilities, and the Minister of Sports will speak to that, roads improvements, safety and security programs, and of course, our National Heroes Park. Capital grants of 18.6 were received in 2017 to support activities such as the Keon and Tabernacle Lighting Project, the rehabilitation of the Old Road Fisheries Complex, the renovation of an outreach center, and reconstruction of a brand new Tabernacle Health Center. Budgetary grants were received from the SIDF in 2017. Mr. Speaker, the government continues to champion investments in sound and resilient infrastructure to facilitate growth and development. As a result, in 2017, the construction sector contributed 18.3% of GDP. In 2017, the sector grew by 4.7%, and this growth momentum is expected to continue with an expansion further of 3.2% in 2018 and 9.9% in 2019. The estimates for a strong medium-term performance is indicative of increased momentum of construction activity in the Federation. Success here will depend on continued private sector investment and the completion of the ongoing work and major development projects in the hotel industry, several of which are at advanced stages of completion. Indeed, when we get further in, we will speak to the government public sector investment project, which has been a critical part of the growth trajectory and projections for the coming year. Mr. Speaker, speaking about the Island Main Road, I think all of us would agree that the Ministry of Public Infrastructure has done a very good job in build-out resurfacing of the Island Main Road from Connery going northeast as far as Keys. And we certainly would want to commend him for that particular work. We can feel the difference. And we understand, although we will advise caution to the drivers who speed on these new resurfaced roads. I recall asking one of them, why do you drive so fast? He said, the road feels nice. The road feels nice. But we have to drive carefully. The life we save may be our own. And I want to caution even my own drivers, because at times they speed with me too. But you know, they are security. I, an ordinary man, could hardly contain them as they go about doing their security jobs. But I warn them to please slow down on these new roads. One of the delightful things about the way we have gone about resurfacing the Island Main Road through and through was that we have involved local contractors. We see them, we know them. Bruni out west. Huggins it is, I think, out west. We have O'Loughlin from Kayard. Yes? We have Ali's Construction. And we could go on and on. Each of them getting a fair share. And each of them succeeding after their bid was evaluated. After their bid was evaluated, they emerged as the significant participant of these. Equally, on the west side of the country, from camps to challengers, nice roads, as a result of the investment of the people's money. And so we want to commend all those who are participating. And each of us look on with expectation that very soon our section of the road will be done too. I can't wait for the road to move from Keys into Keon and then into Atlas, and then it's getting closer home to me. Molyneux and so on and so on. Tabernacle, I could smile. So there's still a lot more to do. And we will not exclude any. We will go all the way into number 6, come around into number 5 and number 4, and link up where the first phase would have been ended. This is a good thing that is happening. As at November 2018, I am advised that we have expended $15 million on roadworks. Our citizens are already praising the efficiency and quality of the work being undertaken. This phase is on schedule to be completed by the end of this month, after which the second phase of construction will begin. Indeed, we were advised yesterday at that wonderful ceremony by the Honourable Minister for Public Infrastructure that, was it bidding to be open this week? This very day. The bids with respect to phase 2 will be open for all to see. Talk about transparency and accountability. You have it in practice. In keeping with another promise of this administration to provide an appropriate facility for passengers and operators on the eastern bus route, our local experts at Public Works designed and assigned the responsibility for the construction of the East Bus Terminal. And we talked about it earlier in the debate, so I won't repeat it, except to say how satisfied we are with the workmanship and the successful completion of that 2-lane bus terminal with vendor booths to accommodate a number of small businesses and other amenities for the patrons who will go there. I gather from the minister yesterday that there's another, an additional aspect of that works that he would like to have completed. And while he may have requested budgetary resource, I'm sure the private sector will willingly take up the tab for the additional phase of that. So I'm encouraging him, as the private sector is here, not to let you go without making a formal presentation. Of course, in that facility, remarkably, we have created a number of outlets for ordinary people, Father, ordinary people to engage in enterprise and entrepreneurship. The hairdresser, the barberer, those who are going to be selling ital and other products will be made available right there, taking advantage of a captive market of persons who will be waiting to take their bus to and fro. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Agriculture will speak to agriculture in detail, but I want to emphasize how we are bringing science to bear to our practices in agriculture, and in particular to take note of the fact that we are bringing greater knowledge to the farmers about how they will farm around the vagaries of weather, how they could use the information being provided by our Met Office to assist in their planning, and how they will need to embody early warning systems in determining the type of crops that they will grow. And in this regard, we are getting outstanding support from the Republic of China in developing a mechanism to mitigate the effects of climate change on agriculture. This is a work ongoing, and I'm expecting that when the Minister of Agriculture comes to speak, we will hear more about the details of that particular initiatives. Mr. Speaker, as part of that application of the science, we are using information now, data from GIS systems, to assist now in determining how and where we will plant. We have, for example, conducted analysis by the St. Kitts Nevis Bureau of Standards and the Needmos laboratories. Field trials have already commenced to determine which crops will grow best in different locations on both islands. Nevis has already established one sweet pepper trial at the Prospect Field Station, while technicians on St. Kitts have selected carrots and tomato. Preparations are being made to establish 3 areas for experiment in these particular crops. The Department of Agriculture Field Station at Laguit is one of the 3. Cardi Institute at Mansion is another, and the Outreach Center at Tabernacle will test the cultivation of carrots. So we are bringing science to bear. Equally important, as part of the sustainability efforts with respect to agriculture, the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Education are partnering in bringing a new curriculum with respect to agriculture, piloting in primary schools. We are advised that Beach Allen is part of that, Joshua Obadiah Williams, the Sadlers, and St. Paul's Primary School getting their full share of this particular partnership between agriculture and education. The Minister of Education, of course, could elucidate more with respect to that. Mr. Speaker, what more can I say about tourism and how we are doing so well? It will take us many days to go through all the accolades that have been given to us in St. Kitts and Nevis. We have had reputable media publications, including the RAB report, the Caribbean Journal, Condé Nast Traveler, acknowledging St. Kitts and Nevis as a destination with natural appeal for a getaway. Most notable is the recognition of St. Kitts and Nevis on the 2018 Bloomberg list of 22 most highly recommended luxurious getaways, and we were the only Caribbean island to receive that designation. Let's give the minister. And we do not stop there, Mr. Speaker. Following this achievement and many more, the St. Kitts Tourism Authority's website was recognized by Travel Weekly in September of this year, receiving the coveted Magellan Award, and it was the only Gold Award winner for the category in 2018. We commend all of these success stories attributed to the hard work of the Minister and Ministry of Tourism and the Tourism Authority. Mr. Speaker, it is well known, and the Minister will speak to the expansion in airlifts into the country for the upcoming season. He will speak equally to the buoyancy of the cruise sector, which has recorded an increase in cruise ship calls of 35.7 during the peak period October 2017 to June 2018. This is fantastic news. 36% increase in the comparative period. So we are doing very well. In July this year, St. Kitts and Nevis stood tall when our captivating destination achieved a historic milestone of welcoming the 1 millionth cruise visitor to our shores. St. Kitts and Nevis, the smallest country doing the greatest good in tourism. This achievement has gained the Federation the coveted international status of being designated as a marquee port. The profile of the Federation has strained as we are now placed in the same elite port category as much larger destinations in the region and across the world. In other words, we are now considered a big player in cruise tourism. The smallest country is now considered a big player. Only about 10 marquee ports in the Caribbean region. St. Kitts and Nevis, the smallest country, achieved that designation in 2018. This, of course, is outstanding delivery of performance, and it benefits all persons. The minister yesterday spoke about the primate vendors, how happy they were to see and to have the Symphony of the Seas visiting. Ordinary people are benefiting from the expansion and growth of our tourism plant and the significant increases in arrivals. Turning to ICTs, Mr. Speaker, this is an area in which the Attorney General has shown leadership, and indeed to his credit for all our good works. In 2017, St. Kitts and Nevis ranked number 37 among 176 countries, and we placed second. We were the second best ranked country in the Caribbean of all 176 countries in the world. Only Barbados had outdone us. We stood at 37, and they went ahead at 34. With all the new developments that are now happening in ICT, with the Attorney General would like to speak at, we must be well ahead of all others. I want, on behalf of that ministry and the government as a whole, to thank the government of Taiwan, which has been helping us in several interventions with respect to the ICT portfolio. Hospital information system, how that will work, the Minister of Health will speak to that. And perhaps the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who I think is also the Minister of Health in Nevis, will speak on the application of that as it relates to the hospital there. And how we will revolutionize the patients' care, their information, protect them. Equally important as part of our trust in ICT would be the digitization of land documents, such as certificates of title, which will enable persons to conduct business more efficiently with our land registry. The system will facilitate e-filing and online searches, and it will also be designed with enhanced security features to enable safe storage and retrieval of information. So, of course, as we make greater inroads, the ease of doing business ranking for our country would improve. Mr. Speaker, the micro and small and medium-sized enterprises in our country have not been omitted from the prosperity agenda. Almost every week, the Cabinet gives special facilitation to small enterprises, the mommy and poppy shops around the country, those who want to set up their eateries, those who want to bring in a bus or a pickup, or to have some additional support for them to ply their trade. We have always turned a helpful eye to assist in this regard, even at times we went contrary in the interest of the public advancement to some of the prescriptions from the Ministry of Finance, who always want to contain public expenditure and the forfeiting of revenues, which is a good thing to guard the public purse. But we look beyond that necessary act of good compliance with fiscal policy to look at the greater good, as we are being invited to do. Mr. Speaker, there are several opportunities that are there which we would want the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to become knowledgeable of and to deal with the threats and challenges as they emerge. The threat of global warming will be dealt with when other ministers come to speak on that particular matter. In particular, our Minister of Agriculture will have more, and our Minister of Energy will speak to that particular matter. We will have ongoing discussions, and indeed we have started discussions with stakeholders in the financial services sector regarding some of the emerging challenges there as we meet OECD and EU new standards and expectations. And I want to thank the team from the Ministry of Finance, including the Inland Revenue Department, including the support from the Nevis Island Administration and their financial service regulatory arm for the coordinated effort we have been making with respect to issues emerging in the financial marketplace, including issues related to anti-money laundering and the combating the financing of terrorism regime, which of course we have to address, and indeed we'll have opportunity to discuss much of these as we move forward. We will shortly be considering legislation to deal with matters of the financial technology and innovations therein, including blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies, and other technology-based financial services and solutions. St. Kitts and Nevis will make the right decisions at the critical juncture with respect to these evolving issues. We will, of course, always aim to meet the best practice and adhere to international standards. Mr. Speaker, we are working hard with respect to issues which will require compliance by the country by the end of December in relation to the EU blacklisting mechanism. And again, we will address these in more detail when we come to the Parliament to deal with a number of these matters. Energy and water are matters which are important to building the resilience of the country. And there are several programs that are coming on stream in the near future, which will deal with street and flood lighting, retrofitting projects, will deal with issues with respect to LED on both St. Kitts and Nevis. We will look at and move forward on geothermal energy, because this is critical to the future prosperity of St. Kitts and Nevis. Indeed, the exploration activities recommence in November 2017 in Nevis, and that particular geothermal project seems to be moving substantially forward, and we want to commend the NIA in Nevis for fast-tracking that particular project, so critical for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. The water matters as they relate to BEAD are matters that are being handled by the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. We are pleased to say that recently we were able to get water locked into Shadwell well number 1, and that should add a significant quantity of water to the areas that are serviced through that particular well. Indeed, the expectation is that some 500 gallons of water per day has been added into 500,000 gallons of water have been added to the system. The government will remain vigilant to ensure that our people continue to have access to safe, reliable water supply, and the Minister of Public Infrastructure will be advancing that particular agenda. Mr. Speaker, it was Franklin Delano Roosevelt who said, the test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have too little. This bears repeating. The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough to those who have too little. When you look at our intervention again, the $500, which is coming soon, which is coming on the 21st of December, which some persons say would never happen in a lifetime, happening now before their eyes. It was an application of this philosophy that the true test of our progress is whether we provide enough for those who have too little. We continue to do surveys with respect to poverty assessment in the country, Mr. Speaker. And under the Participatory Poverty Assessment Project, which commenced on 29th of October and ended on the 30th of November, we did some important surveys of some 10 communities: Connery, Sadlers, St. Paul's, Irishtown, Old Road, Keon, Molyneux, Fig Tree, Newtown, and Tabernacle. I am advised that the selection of these communities by the Statistics Department was as a result of the outcome of the 2007-2008 country poverty assessment that indicated specific communities, or those specific communities, to have high incidence of poverty. And so we want to get the final report to see how those hitherto vulnerable communities have advanced. Mr. Speaker, there's a lot to say about education. And the best person to speak on that, the skills development and human capital expansion, is our Minister of Education. But I could advise, Mr. Speaker, of an important development as part of our philosophy to make education available to all, the setting up for the first time of the St. Kitts Autism Services Center at the industrial site preschool. This development is indeed historic. For the first time in St. Kitts and Nevis, a unit has been dedicated for the screening and provision of social, emotional, and educational well-being of children with autism and to support their families. To date, I am advised that some 58 children have been diagnosed, illustrating the need for this type of facility. And I want to commend the partnership between Minister Richards and Minister Phipps as they went about ensuring that the country took advantage of this offer to become a pioneer in the provision of education for children with autistic needs. Education, Mandela told us, is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. And so by investing in education, we are giving St. Kitts and Nevis an opportunity to positively change the world. That is why when he comes to speak, Our Minister of Education will speak in particular about the advances which we are going to make in technical and vocational education and training, TVET, the development of civic cues, competency-based support for our teachers, our students, and learners in St. Kitts and Nevis. We are prepared, Mr. Speaker, to make the necessary investment in TVET education because we want to ensure that our people who are trained are ready for the real world. We had the scandal, Mr. Speaker, if you will, where we were advised, was it the CDB? CDB, that under the PEP program, 4,000 persons, only 140 of them receive any inkling of training. And what kind of training it was? The curriculum that was being used, Mr. Speaker, was outdated, no longer being used by Hart or any other accredited institution in the Caribbean or in the world. So we were given 140 out of 4,000 persons training that was taking them backwards rather than forward. And so we will not go back to that situation in the country. And amazingly, that was a program that cost the country over $300 million to sustain it. And the best we could have shown was that 140, not even 10%, were exposed to training. And there are many in the private sector who have said that one of the downside of the way in which that program was disastrously managed was that it led to a diminution in productivity and positive attitude towards work. It did not instill in the people an appreciation of what a fair day's work was. It did not instill in our people some of the soft skills that are required for them really to do well in our society. That is the reality which we are attempting to change as we move forward. Mr. Speaker, in health sector, we are going to be focusing a lot of attention on NCDs, non-communicable diseases. This category of diseases has been increasing and becoming more pervasive, not just in St. Kitts and Nevis, but in the Caribbean. The cancers, the diabetes, the obesity, and all of those things. Consequences of genetics, of environment, of lifestyles, and all of those other matters. The risk factors we now have to tackle, and some of them are within our own competence to do. And the Ministry of Health will, in fact, be dealing with these in a pragmatic way. Indeed, way back in 2007, the Caribbean leadership recognized the importance of this challenge and began a discussion in Port of Spain regarding the matter of NCDs and helped put this on the table and the profile of the international community so that subsequent high-level meetings in that particular area are now being conducted. Prevention is better than cure. And in that regard, in the new visioning for the health sector, more emphasis will be put on primary care, moving these forward, putting them in a better position to deal with the multiple of challenges which we are now witnessing, which are making the burden of healthcare costs so unbearable for many in the region. When Senator Phipps comes, she will speak about this. I want to say that we have prioritized 11 health centers strategically located around St. Kitts for refurbishment where necessary we will have complete reconstruction of some of them to address some of the priority issues which are now confronting the health sector. We have, for example, started this at the Tabernacle Health Center. To God be the glory, that should be completed next year. Tabernacle had to be prioritized because basically, under the former administration, the facility had to be closed. The health center was allowed to go to ruins. And in that regard, the health center service was then put in the basement of the daycare center, compromising delivery of two important services: education for people in their formative years, as the space intended for the daycare facility now had to be shared, and it was unfit for the purpose of the delivery of health care. We are moving forward in relation to that matter. And indeed, we have prioritized the health center in St. Peter's for similar build-out in 2019. We are moving forward in healthcare. Mr. Speaker, we could go on and on about what a wonderful day it has been for the housing and human settlement sector of our country, the record work of the NHC, of the government institution in bringing homes to the people, the fact in the new vision with respect to housing and human settlements, we have identified and provided for the disabled to be able to access their homes. And in this regard, the NHC has targeted families in Sandy Point, in Tabernacle, in Central Barstow, in Challengers and Keon communities for at least one of its houses that are now being built. I want to highlight the work that is to come in East Barstow, when we will build out and change as part of the effort to revitalize Barstow what we have there at Wellington Road, East Barstow, and we will bring in condo-type apartments, structures there to assist the people, some 60 households. Mr. Speaker, turning to public safety and security, we have said that we have given it one of the largest component of resources. We want to thank a number of entities that have partnered with us in the build-out, for example, of our closed-circuit television system, which has assisted significantly in those areas in which they have been placed. We have built out Barstow with over 345 cameras, Barstow and the environs, and we have had strong support again from the Republic of China in that regard. I'm advised, Mr. Speaker, that we have had significant reduction in crimes in certain areas. For example, I'm advised that in the gun-related areas where the cameras had been put, we saw a reduction from 19 in 27, repeat that, from 33 in 2016 to 19 in 2017, representing a 42.4% reduction, and we have had 5 incidences recorded in the run-up for the period so far. The CCTV acts as a secondary layer of the investigative process, which can aid in corroborating or disproving allegations made, and increase response times for minor incidents, thereby preventing the risk of escalation. The program has also allowed for the redeployment of police manpower to communities not currently served by this technology. Discussions are ongoing in regard to the design of Phase 2, which will result in the expansion of this initiative in the rural parts. And we have targeted certain hotspots like St. Paul's, like Sandy Point, like Phillips, like Otleys, for special placement of these particular cameras. Wherever and whenever the High Command of the police force have asked for support, we have willingly provided that, because we can't put a price tag on the loss of any life. When they asked for manpower and specialist support, they interviewed and selected 2 senior police officers from Jamaica to come and to assist them in their crime directorate. And this is an area of particular challenge. And so, of course, we provide the necessary support that was required. I want, under this particular tab, to thank the leaders of the regional community who responded when we requested, on the advice of the High Command, that they send some reinforcement into the country, because we will never allow our country to be ruined by the ill discipline and the criminal activity of anyone. I want to thank the heads, because while persons here was, as it were, having a dance whenever there was a homicide in the land, they paraded it, they make a mockery of it, they had a song and dance on every radio show without concern for the suffering of our people. They went so far as to write to the regional leaders, asking the regional leaders not to send the support into St. Kitts and Nevis to protect the property of private people, to protect the property of the business community, and to save lives. How dare them be so disloyal to our country, Mr. Speaker? That is what the country must wonder. They said that law and order was being challenged. They said that we had a crisis in the land. They said that the NIA wasn't doing anything, and worse yet, the federal government would not do anything. We did something. We came up with a response to stem the tide of lawlessness in the country. And instead they say, thank you. And they then say, well, we didn't want that. What did they want? The homicides to continue week after week in our beloved country? Those of us who have only one passport, have only one country to protect. That is St. Kitts and Nevis. Only one you have? What about? He gave up his quickly. That is where we are at. I recall, at the meetings with the regional heads, they told me about a certain letter. And they said that letter was badly written. Badly written, a lawyer said to me. He said that letter must be intended for the domestic public. You don't write to leaders like that. I recall before that, when we had invited them going on a trip to Venezuela, and the Prime Minister of Antigua said to me, Tim, I'm so surprised with the leader of the opposition. Did you know that he called me and asked me not to send help to St. Kitts? And he said to me, that man must be a crazy man. When you are in government, you respond to government. You don't respond to opposition. Here it is. We are being accused. Here it is. We are doing something to help the people. And the man who is supposed to be saying, well, I'm happy that you're dealing with this, is calling people, writing to people, say, don't help. So what it is? Pressure. That man want. That man, according to the Prime Minister, must be a crazy man. Mr. Speaker, so against all odds, we say thank you. These officers who are here, some of them will be spending their first Christmas in our country. I want the carnival to be so sweet that they will come back every year to participate. I want us, when we are baking our hams and turkey, to spare one and take it to acting ACP at the Adams and say, this is for those persons who have come in to maintain peace. As a mark of gratitude, we have deployed them in Nevis, we have deployed them in St. Kitts. And it has been calm. Not perfect, but relative calm. You haven't had, since they come, a homicide, and I hope I'm not talking too quick, so let me not go on. And we are happy for that, because our country, with so much potential, deserve this period of calm. And those who are refusing to work, those who are refusing to seize the opportunities that are in Nevis and that are in St. Kitts must never be allowed to frustrate the economic progress and undermine the investment climate in our country. So I say thank you. And somebody asks how long you will have them. As long as Acting Commissioner Bandy says he needs the support, they will be there. That is how the surplus money will be used, for your safety and security. And you know the strange thing about it? We are the best payer, the most current with the RSS. So in other words, here it is. St. Kitts and Nevis paying for that before anybody else. A service that complements our security asset network. And there are some who, for selfish motive, who want us not to access that. Well, how could you explain that you're paying for a service, and when you need the service, there is a man or a woman, bad man or woman, who says, don't access that particular service. That is not how it will work, because we care for our country too much to allow our country peace and prosperity to be challenged. We are the direct response. You will see, and we have, and the AG will speak to us, brought a number of legislative enactments, and more will come, to ensure that we address the matter in a more holistic way. We are looking at social interventions program. So next year, first quarter, when the FIPS will have a child protection board properly constituted, we will also have an expansion of our explorers group in St. Kitts and in Nevis. I think it was only last month the PS of National Security was over in Nevis recruiting people to help guide our children, to develop in them a sense of partnership with law enforcement officers in the country. So we are looking at this broadly. We are looking forward to continuing the TAPS programs, the programs for counseling and supporting persons in the primary school, particularly at grade 6, so that they could go on and have a better experience at the secondary schools. Mr. Speaker, St. Kitts and Nevis will move forward despite the noise of those detractors who have a vested interest in not seeing progress nor prosperity. The government is the government, and the government will make the decisions that will advance our country. Looking towards the midterm, Mr. Speaker, as we approach the end of the year, I am happy, Mr. Speaker, to share our expectations regarding the probable outturn for 2018. We expect recurrent revenue will reach a target of some 866.4 million. We expect of this amount, 435.2 million will come from tax revenue, and non-tax revenue will bring in the remainder, 431.2 million. We are expecting to have positive, that is surpassing the budget outcomes from taxes and property. More persons are coming forward to pay. Some persons in Frigate Bay and elsewhere have not yet come, but the amnesty period will end in December, and the consequences of that, including the provision for naming and shaming, will come into effect. Taxes on domestic goods and consumption, taxes on international trade and transactions are all expected to surpass budget. I want to thank Mr. Giff and his staff, and by extension the Financial Secretary and the Deputy Financial Secretaries for what will be record performance for St. Kitts and Nevis in terms of tax administration and efficiencies. To God be the glory, and we commend them. Very nice. The expenditure, Mr. Speaker, it is anticipated that recurrent expenditure would reach about 580.2 million by the end of 2018. This will be about 63.4 million above budget. The expected additional spending would be mainly attributable, again, to our subventions, if you will, to the Nevis Island Administration, the cost of due diligence, etc., which varies from time to time depending on the number of applications. And so you have to pay first, and then you get collections thereafter. The capital expenditure we are expecting, that is of the roads and all these other facilities, would come in at around $96 million. Mr. Speaker, with these results, it is projected that for 2018, fiscal surpluses should be realized. So those who are asking where we will get the money to pay the poor people the $500, said to them the government says a surplus. We will use the surplus, if necessary, to assist with that. The recurrent account will reflect a surplus of $286.3 million. It is anticipated that overall we will have $199.4 million, and the primary surplus after we take care of debt payments or make allowances for that will be $221.9 million. The country is in good hands. The fiscal house of the country is well, and we are managing properly. Mr. Speaker, our objective in the medium term will be to keep our debt at around 60% or below. That is the international benchmark for good governance. Never again will we go back to where we were like a failed state with a debt to GDP ratio nearing 200%. Never again will the country reach to a point where it's so irresponsibly managed that you have to go and bend the knees to an IMF for a bailout of $250 million to pay civil servants. Never again, under the watch of Team Unity leadership, will our country reach a state where the government unilaterally denied increment 3 years in a row to our civil servants. Never again under Team Unity will we see a 600% increase in water bills. Never again under Team Unity will we have an 85% increase in electricity bills. Never again will we get so far in the miry clay of mismanagement that the international community sees us as a pariah. And when we hear those who must take responsibility for going for the first time in the history of an independent country to the IMF, didn't happen under the leadership of the first national hero, didn't happen under Limor, you know under whom it happens. And so when you hear the man who is the source of the problem talk about debt, talk about I turn it around, you have to get some kind of emotion. A man take your brand new car, mash up your car. Because that is what he did to the country. You mash up the car, a brand new car. Mark, what kind of vehicle you have? Especially if it's one like Mark own. And you mash up that kind of an expensive vehicle because he inherited a country that was doing well regionally. And then he comes back and he tells you, but I take the car out of the gutter, he gone into the mechanic shop, so give me credit, and you mash up the man's car, the man still vexed with you. And that is what we are dealing with here, Mr. Speaker. The country must go forward, never backward to those days and to those people. Mr. Speaker, talking of the debt, what is the debt outlook? At the end of 2017 fiscal year, the total public sector debt that include government, NIA, all the statutory bodies, was put at 1.6 billion, or 60.8% of GDP. This comprised of debt by the federal government, just under 1 billion at 0.9, 0.4 billion by the NIA, and 0.3 billion owed by public corporations in both St. Kitts and Nevis. 75% of that debt was owed to institutions in St. Kitts, and 25% was owed externally to other groups and to other people. The strides made in 2017 with respect to debt management and our country development continued in 2018, and so we shall continue on that path. In fact, the Federation met the 2030 ECB's debt-to-GDP target of 60% at the end of June 2018, when our debt-to-GDP ratio stood at 59.3%, another record. And we are the first and only country, independent country in the currency union to achieve this milestone. What was the target here? 2030. When did we achieve it? June 2018. 12 years. 12 years before the target date. This is what we mean when we say we are consecrating the future. The impossible things, Mr. Speaker, we are doing today. Miracles may take tomorrow time to do. But, Mr. Speaker, we expect to contain the ratio of the debt. In other words, by growing the economy, by growing the GDP, or by reducing the total amount, we have set ourselves the target that we should never go beyond the acceptable standard of 60% debt to GDP. And so the projections we have outlined is that the debt to GDP ratio must decline. We are expecting this to continue in 2019 down to 57.7. By 2020, we expect to be at 53%, and in 2021, it should reach 48.8%. Mr. Speaker, that is if everything works out exactly as we plan it. We don't have all in our hands. We don't know where weather may come from, adverse as it may be. We don't know what our lot will be. And so we live in hope, but those are the projections, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, over the medium term, from all accounts, we are expecting that we will see growth between 4.9% over the period 2019 to 2021. And this positive outturn would be driven by continued development in construction, tourism, transportation, storage, communication, manufacturing, and wholesale sectors. And of course, tourism, where a lot is happening in relation to hotel development, and those, of course, are enumerated in the budget. What are the prospects, Mr. Speaker, as we look forward? The recurrent revenue for 2019 fiscal year has been put at 749.3 million. Taxes and income will generate 126.9 million of these, and property tax should bring in 16.6 million. Taxes on goods, domestic goods and consumption would bring in another 108.7 million. And we are expecting from CBI inflows, if all goes well, we will have 294 million there. All of these would yield total revenue and grants of 784.1 million. On the expenditure side, Mr. Speaker, an amount of 591.8 million is proposed for recurrent expenditure. And of that amount, well, we are expecting overall a recurrent account surplus of 157 $1.5 million for 2019. We have $151.2 million in the budget, Volume 1, etc., that has been set out for capital expenditure and net lending. And so we are still expecting in 2019 to have a surplus, and the overall account and the primary surplus also. All of these, should things go as we envisage. Mr. Speaker, in terms of the allocations, those have been spelled out earlier today when we presented the list of allocations to the various ministries. And so I'll just repeat some of them very briefly, since the House earlier today had the benefit of the presentation with regard to the public expenditures that make up an overall total of $772.9 million. Justice, Legal Affairs, and Communications will be allocated $12.4 million for recurrent activities in 2019. The Attorney General will outline some of the progress that has happened so far in 2018, how we will affect the efficiency of the court system, new developments at the land registry, new developments in terms of creating a new magistrate to deal with family and other matters. All these things would be part of what that allocation would be going to. We spoke about the advancement that we are making in ICTs before, Mr. Speaker. And again, in the information which we submitted, we made provision for these particular matters. The Office of Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, the allocation that was provided there for about $44.5 million largely will deal with issues of education and training. The Establishment Division is responsible for overall education within the country, financing of external tertiary level education, and substantial millions of dollars are spent in fees to UWI and all the other universities and educational institutions to which we have students attending. So those programs are covered in this $40+ million, as are provisions in relation to the non-establishment workers. They becoming part of the pensionable scheme. We have made provision under that for CARICOM heads of government meeting, etc. All of those accounted for the increase in the portfolio assigned to the Office of the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the matters to do with the reform of the CBI program, all of those are captured under the provision vis-a-vis the Office of the Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker. And I want to touch briefly with respect to that program and to say really that we as a government are very pleased of the transformation which we have brought to the CBI program. We invested time, money, manpower, and expertise to help reform it and to bring it to a standard in which the industry again looked to St. Kitts and Nevis for its leadership in this particular program. Mr. Speaker, we have one of the most robust due diligence programs anywhere in the world, and we cooperate fully with our international partners, not some of the time, but all of the time. All of the time. That was one of the problems of the past. That was why we had the FinCEN advisory in May of 2014. Lack of cooperation when you read the releases put out. That was one of the reasons why Canada withdrew our visa-free access in November 2014. We are now cooperating fully to preserve the integrity. And whenever evidence has been submitted regarding unacceptable behavior, we have and we will continue to act appropriately. when persons sought, for example, in recent times, to go beyond the statutory threshold set for pricing, we intervene quickly to dissuade and to have them cease and desist from doing such things in our programs. When persons maliciously generated letters purporting to come from our citizenship unit bearing false information, we have acted, including seeking the support of the relevant law enforcement authorities. Of course, anywhere there is human effort, you will always have loopholes. I am trained in accounting and auditing. No matter how best a system you bring, it requires human intervention. And with human comes all their failings. They get sleepy, they get lazy, and all those other things to which we are vulnerable to. So we invite those who have information, service providers, developers, anybody, regarding anything untoward, improper, fraudulent, or otherwise, to come and advise the unit, advise the police, advise the Attorney General, so that action should be taken. Mr. Speaker, in relation to one such manufactured letter, the firm of Capis and Bass, through its principals, came forward to the CIU unit, and of course we have had discussion, or they have discussion with the unit, and we welcome that and see that as a sign of a willingness of those who have interest in the particular program to cooperate for the national good. And Mr. Speaker, I could assure this nation that this Team Unity administration will do the right thing every time. We will do it not because it is convenient. We will do it because it is the right and proper thing to do every time. We will move forward working more closely with the developers, the service providers, and agents to ensure the highest standards of integrity prevail in all areas. The program is too important to too many people, the professional class, the developers, and all other people, to allow the despicable agenda of anyone to destroy the program. In 2019, Mr. Speaker, a further set of policies and legislative developments will bolster our brand. Our CBI program continues to be a market leader, renowned for its integrity. And the recent efforts to scandalize the program by aggrieved parties, Mr. Speaker, will not redound neither to their benefit nor to the benefit of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis who depend upon that. Mr. Speaker, it is this program and the success of it which helped buffer the resources of the country that allowed us to be able to pay the double salary in St. Kitts and in Nevis. This is important because of the success story that has happened under this program. Additional resources have come. And of course, we expect no help from those who are bitter in opposition to this government. We will have to do what is needed to be done on behalf of the country, expecting very little so that we won't be disappointed. But we welcome a new spirit of cooperation in relation to these matters, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to work closely with our international partners and all of these. We have spoken already about the heavy allocation of $79 million to national security, and all that will happen, the CCTV, the building of the new police station in Sandy Point that had been neglected for a very long period of time, and I think it's January that the member for number 5 want to have the ground vacant, so I'm giving notice to the permanent secretary, and again through bidding process, through a bidding process of some 5-6 persons, we ended up with a bid which is most conducive in the context of our being able to obtain value for money. That is the best way to do things. We let them all compete, and we then determine which is the best way to go. Under that hefty provision, we have now made provision to complete the Coast Guard barracks that went to the dogs in the dispensation before us. It will be open brand new in 2019, and we have provided for that. And we haven't done like in the past, where provision is made for the completion of the building, but no furniture, no equipment, no fitting. So we have done a wholesome package. Good things are going to happen in 2019, and all patriotic citizens could feel pleased. The allocation to international trade, industry, and commerce, Mr. Speaker, has been increased by about 6% over 2018. 2018 was about 3.8, it's now 4 million thereabout. And we expect that that program will provide support to the small and medium-sized businesses in particular, support the work of our Bureau of Standards, and of course, the Minister will deal more with respect to those. The hefty allocation on the Ministry of Finance certainly is not for me. I'll tell you some of what it is for. And it's really, we have to see the Ministry of Finance as a ministry that services the entire government. It services the debt, whether the debt, for example, is with the CDB, it's for health project, it's for whatever entity it is. Those responsibilities are with the Ministry of Finance. It includes the provision for the NIA. It includes provision for electricity service, and some will be surprised that the government is paying for electricity. When we created SCELEC as a separate and distinct entity, part of what came with it is that the government become a consumer, a customer of SCELEC. And it's a big one, and I think you all should give us a discount, really. For when I see this at 15 million, I think this is a lot. But we want to encourage all the ministries really to pay attention. Conserve electricity. When it is not needed, do not have it on running all day, all night, 24 hours without regard, because it comes with a cost. In that we have made provision for property insurance, catastrophe insurance, and the government health insurance program. All of those are embodied in that amount to the Ministry of Finance. We will look at the construction, for example, of the Printry building and the purchase of pallet scanners for customs, which is a subject under the Ministry of Finance. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Social Services have been provided with about 33.5 million. This is a significant increase. A large part of this is to pay the $500 that will be required to assist the poor people. So when you hear some commentators say, well, they don't know where the money is coming from, tell them the Minister of Finance said it will come in under the Ministry of Social Services, Community Development and Gender Affairs, and we have provided for that. Issues to do with the Probation and Trial Welfare Board, Trial Justice System, all of these are catered for there. Marine and fisheries and cooperative sector have been allocated 10.2 on the recurrent activities. This is an increase over last year of about 10.3%. And of course, all areas, fisheries, crops, livestock, will be taken care of. And there will be a new partnership between the Ministry of Tourism and Agriculture in relation to the tourism park facility. And perhaps down there, you will have no more launch of political candidate in the agriculture place. So that is something perhaps for new management to look at. What happened? The launch didn't go up. It had no traction. Mr. Speaker, on the tourism, this important pillar of our economic growth, we have allocated to the ministry 24.7 million to carry out its recurrent program. And now under the capital project, we have invested 5.9 million. The capital project would include ongoing work at Blockworks Enhancement Project, coastal erosion mitigation, preserving some of the critical tourism assets, South Fires Bay Beach Enhancement Project, and tourism development. And of course, as I said before, the Eco Park will now be managed jointly by these two ministries, so some provision has been made there. And the popular strip in Frigate Bay, the home of the Deputy Prime Minister, occasionally, that too will receive substantial support for 2019. Mr. Speaker, I think we want to make this last point, that outside of this budget for the tourism plan will come the substantial investment of the entities such as Casper. Casper's work, for example, in the second cruise fair of about $130 million. That represents a significant investment in our tourism plan. The millions of dollars now which we are expended at the R.L. Bradshaw Airport, and when the minister comes, he will speak about the bad inheritance that he had there at the airport. All that capital expenditure is not just for tourists, but certainly for our own people who come and go. But that must be considered as part of the broad public sector support to the Ministry of Tourism. And we could go on and on with public infrastructure and energy. We know what will happen there. We have given them 21.4 million to carry out recurrent programs. And of course, they have been given 50.9 million for the capital program, phase 2 of the Island Main Road project, the rehabilitation of the Old Road Bay project as we move. And I alert the Ambassador of the Republic of China, we are going to come for the commitment made with respect to the build-out of the Old Road Bay project. Perhaps the member for number 4 will be the one who gives you a reminder. So that is part of the package that we expect to support this. Concerning water services, we are going to see the construction of reservoirs in Boyds, in Buckleys and Olivies, all of these to improve the quality of life for our people. Education, of course, always gets a large percentage of the budget. This is about people, elevating them. In the recurrent program, 73.1, and we have made provision on the capital expenditure for the Bastia High School. Well, this is a very popular topic these days, and you wonder why. I only wish to say a few things about it, Mr. Speaker, because when we came to office, Bastia High School was really in shambles. It had become the locale of protest and protestation. You had a situation going back from 2012 where the government was unable to bring a solution to the concerns of teachers, students, and workers there who were suffering, whose health was being damaged. They were going to doctors. They were having bumps and boils on their skin. Nobody in authority took notice of them. They were told that they were imagining things. Psychosomatic. That is a new word for imagining things now. So that was the word they used. Repeat it again one more time. Psychosomatic. They were imagining it. It's just a feeling. Bump on your skin. You just imagine. Just touch it and it will go poof, like the national debt. That was how they devalued the serious health challenge to the people of the country. that critical health sector. We want to thank the teachers and the students who stood firm. One teacher from East Barstow, God bless her, she came public, took off her blouse, and bare for all to see the damage that she had suffered at the Barstow High School. One young lady came forward, I think she's a knight, and she spelled out on radio what it was like to go to the Barstow High School, and nothing would happen. When we came in fact, we canvassed it, and we won the debate. So I'm really surprised that they're trying to bring back up the debate about the Barstow High School, because we were upfront with the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. We didn't say that we will leave them at that old Barstow High School location between East Park Range and Victoria Road. We said no. We will follow the advice of the technical reports that had come from external professional groups, and we will err on the side of caution. And erring on the side of caution required that we go elsewhere. And we told the people up front that. We didn't keep it as a secret. We said that it had to be a show of a government that had outlived its usefulness, that in answer to the clear evidence of mismanagement of the education sector, that you would allow people to continue to suffer more, that you will challenge them, that you will tell them it's they willfully and bad-mindedly imagining that they got a bump on their face. And we said that situation wouldn't allow to continue. We said that it was a half-baked response of an incompetent Minister of Education that would try to resolve the problem by creating multiple centers for students all around Barstow. You move from campus life to having maybe 10, 12 spots around the country. Churches, this, that. And you put the people's children there. We came in, and our short-term response was far superior to their long-term permanent response. Immediately, and I want to give the Minister of Education credit, because within 1 year, he came up with a program that had the students of the Barstow High School in a permanent single setting. The majority of them were there. At the opening of that new, improved facility, you could feel the joy. You could feel the excitement. The principal, Ron Collins, the chair lady, the staff, and everybody else were happy. I recall, and I could see it now, when the chair lady got up to speak and preside. She said, you know, up here, this is so nice and lovely, with all this new setting and investment in technology and security. She said, it is like a fresh start. And when she said, it's a fresh beginning. I said, no, it's a fresh start. Because the fresh start was us. So she wanted to be politically correct. But she was right. It was a fresh start which we gave to the Barstow High School. And we didn't end it there. We said again publicly, the permanent solution was to build a new school. Something more modern, in keeping with all that is nice and wonderful when we think of the Barstow High School. We got the technical people together and they did their work. They came up with a site at East Barstow. We brought in the professional people, the experts in water. They gave their blessings. The government did not get up one morning out of the dream of the Minister of Education and said, put it over there. We followed due processes. We invited the top experts everywhere to come and give an advice. There was a regional expert serving over in Nevis. The Premier then invited us to involve him in the team. We brought in a gentleman from Nevis who had served for years at the water department in Nevis to add to the professionals here, like Dr. Hallisey Haley, like Denison Paul, like Comrade Williams, and all those people with expertise and experience. And they tell us, and Atil Wallis. You see that? But how you could let people get on radio and be talking nonsense when the experts have told us the sensible approach to go. And when they're talking about Bastia High School, they forget that the same Bastia High School where I went to, where it is now, that sits on the aquifer. Sits on the aquifer. The aquifer is not just one place. If you were to talk about the aquifer, so many things and entities in Bastia will have to be displaced. So this approach that we are hearing from some pseudo-talks people about the aquifer, and that they want to protect the aquifer, they forget that right there, the school where they're saying go back to is on the aquifer. It is intellectual dishonesty, and at best intellectual stretching in which they are engaged for political purposes. We went beyond that. We have said that we will bring a system, waste disposal system, which is state of the art. So there is no chance for any contamination to take place. And you could hardly have any contamination because the school is sited way downstream in terms of the watershed. If it were where it was, we could talk issues. If it further where it was, we could talk issues. A watershed covering miles, and they're talking about it as if it is one spot. If we were to follow them, you wouldn't have no Pan Pasha extension. You wouldn't have the Seventh-day Adventist Church. You wouldn't have any of those facilities. You wouldn't have flow and all of them up there. All that is part of the aquifer. So what is the confusion? The notion that there is only one purpose, that an aquifer must go with grass and bushes and don't touch it. You wouldn't even have the National Heroes Park if you follow them. That notion has long been overwhelmed by an abundance of science that speaks to multipurpose use. So, Mr. Speaker, we will move ahead with the Bastia High School, and the Minister of Education will deal with that. Mr. Speaker, sports and culture, sustainable development, foreign affairs, Nevis affairs, labor, social security, ecclesiastical affairs have all been provided for, and we have had approval in the discussions before, and I will leave it to the ministers to have something to say when they come, and therefore to speak more detailedly with respect to them. I want, Mr. Speaker, then to say, we will move forward in 2019, with optimism. We had in the course of the year probably some 4 roundtable discussion with the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, and interesting ideas came forward from those dialogues. I want to thank President Warren Lawrence and his advisor, Damien Hobson, who is also my advisor in some matters, for facilitating these fora, in which we have had some very helpful exchanges on both sides. And we will try moving forward to incorporate more of their suggestions. I want to report, though, what one area which they mentioned, which we have acted upon for 2019, is to do with the allowable amounts for compensation for employees and family members. I'm advised that in the 2012 Act, Income Tax Act, this limit was moved from 60,000 to 75,000. And then in 2016, my administration increased the threshold to about 90,000. The issue came up again in the Growth Forum. The private sector was saying to us, well, if you want good people, these amounts you all are allowing us are inadequate. And you needed to, as it were, top up the allowable amounts, the thresholds. So we have responded favorably today, and we have allowed for this to be increased to $120,000 per annum. This represents, over the last 3 years, an increase of 50%. The Chamber can't ask any more from the people's government. So that we will follow up upon, Mr. Speaker. We appreciate, we will work it out. No, 2012 we went to 75, so it's 50. Yeah, 75. So it would have moved from 75 to 120. That's about 45. Yes. So Financial Secretary, you'll have to look at your maths. It's over 50, maybe more like 57%. But we will give them that nonetheless. We'll give them nonetheless, and we will stick to the 120,000. The idea came up about the tax clearance certificate, that entities should be able to produce some certificate indicating that they are up to date with their tax compliance issues. We have taken that idea on board, and we will move to implement the notion that we will have a tax clearance certificate system being introduced. This would constitute an official confirmation from the Inland Revenue Department that the affairs of a particular entity, those affairs are in order. Mr. Speaker, we have spoken about the land for debt, and I just want to add one last part moving forward with respect to that matter. Some people make a song and dance that we said, and we did say, that the land for debt swap was a bad decision of the former government. We did say that a consequence of it was that the prices of land were being put outside the reach of ordinary people. And we continue to believe that. Mr. Speaker, we are aware of the intricacies of the land for debt swap, the implication for the books of National Bank and other institutions that are involved. And so we have determined that we will find another sensible way to redeem the land and put back the land in the hands of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Given the health of our fiscal resources, we determine moving forward that we will buy back over time quantities of land and make them available to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. That then allows for the careful management with respect to all the other entities that are involved. And we will start by reclaiming lands for the people of Sandy Point who were locked out, particularly by the La Valley deal. We will reclaim land at Keon for the people of St. Christopher 8. And of course, we will redeem the land taken from the people at Lodge Atlas community. Those will be the initial response. And we will bring back at least, by year-end, 500 acres as part of that process. And some people like to talk about transparency. Would you believe in 2014, when they added the La Valley lands as part of the land for debt swap, not a word to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. 500 acres of land added to 1,200 taken by the vesting of certain lands act, and not a word to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Only when you go to Sandy Point for expansion, the people at Sustainable tell you no more land there. Government of the past locked out the people. So many people come to us now, said I were forced to go all the way so and all the way there. It was not my wish, but because of the land for debt swap arrangement, we could not get lands in areas that we wanted. Imagine with all the lands in Kayard, people in Kayard being locked out. Imagine I couldn't get lands for people in Lodge and Atlas because of the land for debt swap. Something was wrong and is wrong with it, and we are rectifying it in the least harmful ways. Equally, Mr. Speaker, the promised Growth and Resilience Fund will be established early next year. We have had some support, technical support in that matter, and we are now ready to engage at the cabinet level and in the Parliament with respect to the Growth and Resilience Fund. We will put aside a portion of our surpluses each year, so in the event of adversity, we are not caught totally unprepared. It is putting in place the wisdom of our forebears, saving something for the rainy day. Because as dry as it may be in summer, there is a season when the rain will come. Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude the presentation by saying thank you to those in the country who have been so supportive of this government and who have been benefited from the prosperity agenda set out by the government. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that we are making progress in the development of our country. Our country is moving on. Acknowledging this fact is heartening, and it should be a strong signal to motivate our people to do more, so that we gain the momentum in the areas that would lead to improve and increase in levels of growth on the island of Nevis and on the island of St. Kitts. The Team Unity Administration is committed to work already started to implement a number of growth-enhancing reforms, targeting improvements in the business climate. And we will work with the private sector in 2019 to enhance these. Certainly, our capital projects for 2019 would intensify the investment in resilient infrastructure. The fiscal stance of the government is accommodating to private investment, while at the same time maintaining a good balance with discipline to ensure that we preserve the surpluses for future use. We will set up, Mr. Speaker, the procurement board in short order, and we will ensure that the necessary procurement regulations are put in place. This was part of the unfinished business of the administration, which was rejected in February 2015. We will use the 2019 budget to address weaknesses in our systems and to ensure that we would move closer to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Mr. Speaker, the budget is anchored on the objective to register notable progress with respect to 9 of 17 Sustainable Development Goals, some of which, like health and education, come readily to mind. Mr. Speaker, the private sector, of course, must play a part. And we are encouraged by the investment which has come so far from our private sector partners. The prospects for growth in foreign direct investment remains very optimistic for 2019 and beyond, as investor confidence in our country and in our CBI program continues to be high. Our foreign direct investment flows largely comprise investment in real estate sector, and they continue to be important to the overall development of the country. We have a large number of projects that are ongoing and which we hope to see come to completion. Royal Mist Hotel in Seaview Gardens, Seaview Heights Resorts and Residences, Era Development in Hermitage Estate, Cayan, Belmont Gardens in Pinney's Estate in Nevis, Windham Hotel in Nevis, Utley's Plantation Inn, renovation and expansion. All these will take on new life, we anticipate, in 2018-19 for a combined investment of over 300 million US. Of course, all of that will not be spent in any 1 year, but that is the value we have attributed to these projects. Mr. Speaker, we have seen developments in the restaurant sector where persons are taking advantage of the standalone restaurant duty-free scheme, and we welcome that. We are encouraged by the work of SCASPA, Mr. Speaker, and and SCASPA too. But we are encouraged by the promotional work of SCIPA as it continues to promote St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Speaker, it is customary to hear visitors and residents alike, as we did yesterday, comment favorably on the pace of development in St. Kitts and Nevis. Evidence is everywhere that the country is on the move. To quote one radio personality in a sub-regional radio link-up, a lot is happening on the ground. When they asked him how the government is doing, he said, a lot is happening on the ground. It will be very difficult for any opposition to upset the government when a lot is happening on the ground. We know that. The opposition knows that. And that is why they are panicking. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to add, it's not just a lot that is happening, but a mighty lot is indeed happening. And we must marvel that so much is happening in St. Kitts and Nevis, brought on by Team Unity administration, brought on when every year we have presented no new taxes. All these surpluses we are talking about, we are managing the same tax structure that we have inherited. In fact, we went better and we reduced the number of these taxes. And we increase, as we have done today, the allowable deductions for income tax. And yet everything is going on the up. We are improving no new tax for 44th year in a row. And we are recording surpluses. A lot is indeed happening because the second cruise fare, which was promised for 12,005 and did not happen by 2015, is now happening. Something wonderfully good is happening in our country. And while this marvelous investment in cruise tourism, which was hailed by the leadership of the Symphony of the Seas yesterday, was taking place, one disloyal citizen, perhaps aided and abetted by others, took the unprecedented stand to write to the Canadian government entity CCC to ask them not to participate in the expansion of the second cruise fare. How more disloyal could one man get? A letter penned by a son of the soil, asking not to participate in a project that would advance the quality of life. Somebody help us. Somebody help us. Is there a health response for somebody who behaves so abnormally and disloyally? Senator Phipps, is there a health response? Or that will have to come from the body politic? We have to address that in the winding up. A brand new East Bus terminal opened yesterday ahead of the hectic Christmas and Carnival build-up. Something good is happening in St. Kitts and Nevis. The Tabernacle Health Center is nearing completion. Something good is happening. A new customs annex building advancing to completion. Something good is happening. a new Coast Guard facility to be ready for use next year. Something good is happening. The renovation work and the runways at Arwell Battery International Import, how much they costing us? $41 million in the tourist plant. Something good is happening. And new hotels will be opened up in Frigate Bay and Rural North. Something good is happening. At Inland Revenue, they tell us that on the team unity, we have sustained the highest level of business licenses, indicating the vibrancy in the commercial sector. So something good is really happening. In housing, we have delivered over 3,000 housing solutions. Never before happened in the country in the course of one term. And never mind, 3,000 housing solutions. And never mind, Mr. Speaker, the term is not yet ended. We have until July or thereabout 2020. August. Yes? August. Well, they have to give us an extra month. So somebody in trouble. We can have until August 2020 is a constitutional deadline for calling the next election. Non-establishment workers will get their annual holiday pay on the 14th of December. Something good is happening. Our health infrastructure providing better care to our people. MRI services for the first time in the Federation. Cancer care available through the oncology wing at JNF Hospital, thanks to Team Unity. The mental health care program has taken off with the inauguration of the Mental Day treatment facility in Limekiln, thanks to Team Unity. Something good is happening. And the other day, I was pleased to see 3 hemodialysis machines being presented to the JNF Farms Hospital. None went to Mary Charles in time to come. Yes? In time to come? So we are grateful for all of these things. And I saw the distinguished Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Honourable Premier of Nevis receiving a check from the Republic of China and Taiwan. We are grateful as we build out and allow more of our people to experience quality health care in St. Kitts and Nevis. We could go on and on. I simply want to end on a note of thank you that we have been able to accomplish so much in such a short time frame in this country. And in spite of the foregoing of revenues from VAT and so on, we are expecting that 2018 will be the best year of tax collection in history, both for tax revenue and non-tax revenues. This speaks well to the efficiency of tax management in our country and the buoyancy of our economy. In closing, Mr. Speaker, it has been a real honor for me to serve the nation from the side of the House. For all the many accomplishments to date, small and large, I want to say to God be the glory. And to this incredible team of persons who support the work of the Team Unity Administration, day in and night out. The Senior Minister, Honourable Vance Henry, our Attorney General and Technology Guru, coming close to that, the Honourable Vincent Byron, our Minister of Foreign Affairs and Premier of Nevis, the Honourable Mark Grantley, our Deputy Prime Minister, the Honourable Sean Richards, our Minister of Public Infrastructure, the Honourable Ian Patridge, winning again, Libert, our Minister for Agriculture et al., the Honourable Eugene Hamilton, the best performing Minister of Tourism, the Honourable Lindsay Grant, our Senator of Health, and of course our Deputy Speaker, and all the support officials in the government. that has helped the country to have advanced over the 3 years. Team Unity, they said, was a concoction, never to have happened, never to have properly blended, and yet we have. And the country is better, stronger, more respected, and growing because of the advent of Team Unity. So I move that this tax-free budget and the bill shortly entitled the Appropriation 2019 Bill 2018 be approved by this Honourable House, as it will ensure more tangible benefits for our people in education, in health, in infrastructure, in housing, etc. Accordingly, I move. And I say thank you to all of you who have come out today to give support. In particular, to thank our surviving national hero, Sir Kennedy, for coming out today and render moral support, as he did so publicly with respect to the Team Unity movement in our country. Equally, I recognize the President from the Nevis Island Assembly and all the other dignitaries, our ambassadors, resident here representing other countries, and those representing St. Kitts and Nevis for coming and making today splendid and spectacular by your participation. May it please the Honourable House, Mr. Speaker, I thank you so much.